everybody, and welcome to Declutter Me, a podcast about organizing and decluttering your life. And hello, Shelina.
Hi, Shrek.
What do we have for our listeners today?
So today I thought I wanted to talk about grief and how it can manifest into clutter. I've had a few clients over the years, and quite a few recently, who have dealt with grief, or who have had death occur in their family or with their friends, and after a while, it's manifested into clutter, and it seems to be a continuous thing now, and people don't know how to deal with the grief, or they're not dealing with it in a proper way. And what we talked to Dr. Saliha Afridi from Lighthouse Arabia about mental health issues and clutter, and so we sort of mentioned about the grief, but I thought we talk a bit more about it today because it is something that I am seeing a lot with clients, and it's something now getting, it's very close to my heart, seeing the pain that they're going through, and to try and help listeners who are going through this, to help them so that they don't get to that stage where they've accumulated that much clutter. You know what I mean?
So, and I think it's important, I think, here as well to figure out where to begin, because, we've talked as well about sort of treating the symptom versus getting to the underlying issue. So where does someone begin? Let's say if you are someone that sees that someone is going through grief but which is manifesting as clutter, or you are someone that has been through a bit of trauma or grief, how do you sort of break out of this cycle? How do you sort of reach out to you?
So with what I find with a lot of clients is that when they get in touch with me, it's been about a year or so after the death of whoever in there.
Really? So you don't you don't find it to be shorter than that? Like I would imagine that a couple months in and it's sort of already manifesting, and you have this probably breakout moment.
No, it's for many it takes about a year, and with a lot of them, it's got to the point where somebody else has said, you need to sort your life out. Look at the state of all this stuff, or they need to move, or they need space in the room. It's accumulated in a room so much that you can't do anything else in that room, and they want to live.
Right. So it's reached a point where it's now overflowing, and now you got to deal with it. Okay.
Or it's that something's clicked in them. That's the grief, that grieving period, the intense grieving period has suddenly stopped. There's that click that you have when somebody passes away, and you suddenly not become normal, but you go back to maybe living a life more like you were before this happened, if you know what I mean. So it's that kind of bit, and then they look and go, like that glazed eyes is clicked off, and you can see your surroundings and go, oh my God, what have I got here? So that's what happens with a lot of the clients that reach out to me. And as soon as they say to me, I've got all this clutter, and a lot of the time when they send me the pictures or the videos of the clutter, and most of the time it seems to accumulate in bedrooms, and it will be lots of carrier bags full of stuff that they've not taken out. They've just gone shopping a lot. And so usually I will pick up, I'm not saying that's always the situation, but a lot of the time, then I will say, I think there's some grief involved there. And when, of course, I go to their house and talk to them, it will come out. They'll say, somebody's passed away, this has happened. And then, so like they'll have all these bags of stuff. And a lot of it is that they've bought the stuff, so they've gone shopping, they've used all their energy to go shopping, and then they come back and they have this lack of energy, they feel worn out, or they have difficulty prioritizing and, giving value to the items. They don't have focus on how to, or, they don't have the ability to concentrate on dealing with the stuff they have, and especially when it's stuff from the person who's passed away, dealing with that, and that accumulates as well, because suddenly you've got all this stuff from this person who's not with you, and you don't know what to do with it, and you don't want to let go because it's their stuff, and then it just becomes overwhelming over time. So that's why it gets to that point where it gets to that year, and then somebody goes, I'm buried in somebody else's stuff, and I'm buried in my own stuff. I don't know what to do. And then many people don't go for support. So they don't go for bereavement support. And Dr. Saliha talked about this grief support group. But here, and it is still a cultural thing not to go get help, to not go get grief support, because you think I'm strong enough, I can do it, I can handle it myself. We've all done it.
Or worse, that you think actually that like, oh, I don't have a mental health problem. Like, it's just I'm just dealing with this stuff. It's fine. I'll get over it. And it's kind of there's still a lot of stigma associated with just admitting that there's a problem.
Yeah, and I think for all of it, I mean, we've recently last year we both had deaths in our close to, was your
Year
grandmother
before
last
for me.
year before? So we've both had deaths, and we just got on with it. We didn't go for grief support, and I should have. I did have a breakdown. I was, I had to get on with life. I had to, I didn't accumulate clutter, just focus on my work and stuff. I ended up having a breakdown in Disney World, which is supposed to be the happiest place in the world. And it was because I didn't go to sort out the grief. And mine was because it was a pet. And there's still that stigma that, why are you upset about a pet? It doesn't matter that it was this cat that was in my house for so many, many years. And everybody has that. You have that. It's a loss, whether it's death or illness or a job or anything. If you don't get support, you will have issues further on, whether it's clutter or breakdown.
It's kind of, to summarize, I guess it's just about actually coming to terms with it yourself to a large extent. But I think it's important that people understand that you can ask for help. You should ask for help, perhaps, and that there are a lot of resources. I think in just about every city really now. But I mean, we're talking, of course, from Dubai's perspective, and again, places like Lighthouse Arabia and other varying institutes and a lot of practitioners here who can really help, right? And perhaps it's also and then this is where kind of you come in as well, because a lot of times people will reach out to you not identifying that the clutter that they're accumulating has to do with the grief that they've been on or that they've experienced, but just that they have clutter problems. And then that's where a professional like you could come in and sort of help with the clutter and kind of just use this sort of, as you mentioned, the clutter cloud, but then eventually also kind of break it down and realize like, hey, I think you should perhaps go to a support group or talk to another professional.
Yeah, and that's what happens a lot. So with me working with clients is we deal with the core thing, the visual, the clutter. So as I said, that with a lot of clients, they have all these carrier bags full of shopping, and they've already got, like, same in makeup. They've already got loads of makeup, but they keep on buying more makeup. So we have to declutter the old makeup, as we've discussed on other podcasts about decluttering makeup. So we do that, and then we go through the bags and take out all the new makeup. So at least we have fresh makeup for them. And I say, look, you've bought all this makeup. Look at how much great stuff you got, the value of it. Use that and just don't buy for now. So I use the tips and tricks that I would use on a client on a regular basis who I'm helping with decluttering and organizing, but there has to be that extra step that we'll do all this, we will declutter everything, we'll organize it, but then you have to go as well to go get help to deal with that underlying mental health issue, to deal with the grief, to get the support that you need mentally, because otherwise you will go back to the shops and start buying again. And that's not going to help you. You're going to spend more money that you don't need to spend. And I mean, like with one client, she'd bought so much stuff and we ended up having to discard so much makeup because it was old. And I said, if we counted this all, this was the value of a Chanel bag. She could have bought a brand new Chanel handbag with the amount of money she'd spent on all this stuff, on this makeup. And she was buying gifts for people. And, we've discussed about buying gifts as well, that you're imposing your taste and your thoughts on, your taste on other people. And she was like, well, I was being kind, I wanted to do it. And that was part of the grief. That was part of the grieving process for her. But she was then wasting money, which she didn't need to do. But putting it into perspective and saying, you like handbags, you've spent this much money, you could buy a Chanel handbag when you're ready. But think about it in that way. That kind of, I saw the light bulb go on her and she went, you're right. Actually, yes, this has to stop now. I need to sort myself out. And she had sorted herself out. The fact that she called me to help her, ask her to help her, that's great, because she is realizing that she needs to help herself and to sort herself out.
Okay, so I guess step one is kind of identifying that you have a problem and coming to the first professional and stuff. Other things that someone should do after that, in terms of course, they should go through the process. So whether it's a decluttering process, whether it's speaking to a mental health professional, and you have to then commit and keep at it, right? You ideally shouldn't quit midway. But is there something else perhaps that you want to add to that?
Also, if you know someone is, accumulating a lot of clutter, and you know that it might be due to grief, throwing things away and criticizing them is not going to be helpful. Like, you need to be gently communicate with them. You have to be non-judgmental and just guide them. Like, if you know someone right now, maybe say to them, listen to this podcast. This might help, or send a link to a website, to our website or to other people's to get the support that they need, but let them make their own decision. And it's always the same thing with anyone who wants to declutter. It has to be the person who's got the clutter that decides when they're ready to declutter, whether they've just accumulated clutter just for some other reason or because of grief. No one can be forced to declutter when they're not ready to. And then, when they're ready to, call someone like a professional organizer to help them declutter, but also find out about where you can get support for your grief and for your mental health issues, because, grieving is a mental health issue. So, and there's nothing to be ashamed about. We all have lost someone, whether it's a family member or a pet like mine was.
Yeah, and I think what we'll do as well is, of course, we always share, how can people contact you? But I think in the show notes for this episode, we'll leave a link to the Lighthouse Arabia as well, so people can reach out, or if they want to send it to somebody that they feel could use it.
Yeah, and you can always get in touch, send a private message, or fill in the form at declutterme.com, and I'll come back to you with advice on whether I can help or whether you need to get help from somewhere else.
That's it from us for this week, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.